Action.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Dr. Muse here with Dr. Ulm for another clinical coffee chat. And before,
As we both drank water today.
Oh, they don't know that.
Yeah. This is coffee for sure.
Yeah. Before we get into it,
Coffee clear.
yeah, I have to remind everybody about our community lecture series, which is 2 weeks from yesterday, so Tuesday, January 3rd at 5:30 p.m. at the Dublin Library. Our own Dr. Ulm is going to be talking about the 4 pillars of health, which kind of leads its way into what we're going to talk about today. And it's something very common for this time of year that's on a lot of people's minds, and that's setting healthy health goals for the new year.
Yeah, this is, I think almost everybody does it. I'm not much of a, New Year's resolution guy for reasons that we'll go into here in a little bit, but still, you kind of get sucked into the idea. People might be asking you, like, what are you doing, or do you have any resolutions for next year, or just, I think this the changing of the calendar makes you just think like, okay, well, what can I do? And it starts, putting your thought, like thinking like forward, like, okay, what can I accomplish in 2023 or that kind of thing, or even reflecting back on 2022, how did I do? Yep. What could I have done better? What went well? All those things. So the goal setting is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, so what we want to talk about is, within this first month of the year, what do we typically see when we go to the gym? It's packed full, can't find a machine, can't find a barbell. If you're a regular gym goer, you roll your eyes like, give it a month, these people will be gone.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we want to talk about. How do we not have this quick burnout when we're trying to reach some of these goals that we have? And what we find very often is that people have these lofty goals that they want to reach, and they just go 0 to 60 and just start trying to get it all done at once. But we want to talk about how do we prolong that and actually reach these goals in a more sustainable manner.
And that's kind of the goal of your goal, so to speak, really should be to set a habit, to change a habit. It's not a matter of sort of, achieving something like, ooh, I want to lose 10 pounds, right? You might lose 10 pounds along the way of setting this habit, but the goal should be to like improve your, exercise regimen or improve your diet, and then have the habit there, and the result of the habit is, the desired, I lost my 10 pounds, or I, went down a pant size or something like that, whatever the case may be.
And we see this all the time with some like fad diets where people are so gung-ho about it for a month, they do great, and then they burn out on it and then put that weight back on. So we really want to get into the topic of how do we set some of these more short-term habits that serve this overall goal. This isn't a month-long journey. This isn't a sprint. This should be a marathon to change how you go about your life.
Yeah, and I always tell patients that, I would rather see them, let's just take exercise as an example. I would rather see them exercising 3 days a week in December of 2023 as opposed to smashing out, 5 or 6 days a week of just super intense workouts in January. They end up setting these habits that are unattainable throughout the year, and then by the end of the year they're just done, and then they're back to where they were at the end of 2021 and 22 and so on and so forth. So you want to think, okay, at the end of the year, what is the habit that I want to change so that in the last 6 months of the year, the last 3 months of the year, you're still doing those things. And those are that's kind of the end goal. Now you may choose to fluctuate your exercise or your diet or whatever, throughout the year, but you want to have, a change and improvement in your healthy habits the back half of the year.
Yeah, so we want to be setting the table for success here. And we want to talk a little bit about obviously the macro goal. The macro goal would be, okay, at the end of 2023, where do I want to be? Is it a weight goal? Is it a how many days a week you train? Is it eating habits? Whatever it may be, set your macro goal. But we need to have these micro goals or these benchmarks along the way to have more attainable results. Because if we just have our eyes all the way on the finish line, there's a good chance that we stumble along the way and maybe fall off the path. That was a great analogy.
Yeah, if he may say so himself. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times what people do is they may say, okay, I want to lose, 10 pounds or 15 pounds or whatever. And you can really only go so fast to accomplish a lot of these goals, in a healthy manner. Let me use a different example than diet, because everyone uses that, or losing weight. Let's talk about, your sleep opportunity, the window of opportunity you have for sleep. If you're somebody right now that your window is less than 7 hours, it's not good. So we want to increase that. But if I told you that 9 hours happens to be optimal for you personally, and you go from a 6-hour opportunity to 9, that's way too big of a change. And you might be able to do that in the beginning of the year when people aren't quite as busy, they're not outside as much, there's not as much going on, there's the lull after the holidays. Well, great, you might be able to do that right after the holidays, but then the moment your life starts getting busy again, you're just going to go right back to where you were in 2022. So what you want to do is think okay, I'm just going to make a reasonable change, an achievable change to my sleep habit, and say, okay, I'm just going to expand my sleep window by 30 minutes. I'm going to go to bed 15 minutes earlier, and I'm going to get up 15 minutes later, and that's it. And then you do that until you're hammering that out and consistently hitting that. And then you can figure out how to get over some obstacles that we'll talk about in a second. And then you can add a little bit more. And by the end of the year, you might expand, if you so decide, to, your sleep opportunity up to 9 hours, if that's what you want to do. But instead of saying okay, January 1, I'm just going 9 hours, going at it hard, yep. You're going to go, okay, I'm just going to go to 7 hours, and then 7.5, then 8, 8.5, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so we want to create these habits. So my example would be reading. Reading, I would say, falls under healthy habits. If I'm reading on a nightly basis, then I'm stimulating my brain. But if my goal for 2023 is to read 12 books or novels, well, cool, that's my macro goal, but maybe I need to set these actionable steps to reach that point. So read 20 pages a night. That's an attainable goal that I can reach every day. Whereas if I'm looking at this 12 novels, well, that's daunting. But if I just say 20 pages a night, well, that's completely reasonable, and then I can check myself on a day-to-day basis and keep myself honest with how I'm doing with this stuff.
The other thing I like about his idea there with okay, every night I'm going to read 20 pages is I think that repetition is incredibly important for setting a good habit. So exercise is perhaps a better example here. A lot of people say, okay, I want to get 3 or 4 days a week of exercise in, right? And they're just hammering that out. And they're going to do 2 hours in the gym 3 days a week. And that's great, but I think it's actually better to set a habit where it's every day you brush your teeth, maybe you read, and then you also are going to exercise, you're going to move. We'll talk about this at the 4 Pillars of Health talk, but we're going to do a movement challenge in January. So there's going to be some ideas to kind of help people sort of improve their movement habits, but it's not, hey, get 2 amazing, perfect workouts in twice a week. It's going to be, that was redundant, it's going to be, all right, try to move every day. Set the habit of moving every day. So Brad's example of, I'm going to read 20 pages every night, that is repetition, and that repetition is going to literally actually change the neural pathways in your brain. It's going to make it easier and easier and easier to do that. The more you do it, the more it becomes like this rigid habit, and that's kind of what we want. We want habit-forming goals. We don't just want, to do
right.
One little thing.
And to build off of that, we want specific objective measurements to go by. So taking the 20 pages example, putting it to movement, what we're going to be doing in January is 15 minutes of movement every day. Did you do it or not? So now you know if you are reaching some of these milestones. So for that first month of the year, maybe that's what you do, 15 minutes of movement a day. Cool. What do you do in February? Maybe you bump it up to 30 minutes of movement or 20, whatever increments you want to do.
Or you can modify the intensity of what you're doing, right? So a lot of times, I think the main theme here is that we want to have achievable goals, and we want to make reasonable changes along the way, kind of like you're turning a battleship. You're not turning a ski boat or something. So if we're sticking with all right, we're going to do 15 minutes of moving every day, which is how I sort of got, I would say back on track, in the beginning of COVID. What you can do is okay, I'm just going to get out and walk. I'm going to go outside and I'm just going to walk for 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be intense. It's just going to be, I'm just going to get out and move. You're to set the habit of doing that. Or you can say, I'm just going to go to the gym and I'm just going to sort of stretch out and warm up. I don't know where you're at in your sort of fitness journey, but setting the habit and starting with an intensity and a volume that you can actually handle is great. And then you can either increase the duration of your exercise bouts, every day. Okay, I'm going to go to 20 minutes and 30 minutes and so on and so forth. Or you can say, okay, well, I'm going to start, twice a week, I'm going to actually try to run a little bit, or I'm going to go to the gym, and you can start increasing the intensity of what you're doing. But the point is here that you're starting with repeated, achievable efforts that you can do every single day, like brushing your teeth, so that you can form the habit at the end of the year. You're still exercising, 7 days a week.
Right. So I think some of the big takeaways from this is, yes, have these big goals that you want to reach, but let's have objective steps along the way, and then let's not act retroactively with these. Plan these out. So the 15 minutes when I wake up tomorrow, I got to get that in. So you're not setting that aside at the last second. We need these steps to be objective, not just I need to move today. Well, that's way too broad of an idea.
I had a long walk from my car into Target. Like, that doesn't count.
15 minutes or whatever you want the measurement to be, but these should be benchmarks along the road to your path to your overall goal, and they should be objective.
Yeah, I think that's really good. We want to set habits. We like the longer term goal because you're trying to change habits. We want the benchmarks along the way so that you have like a target that's right in front of you can go after. The last one that I think we just want to leave you with is that you need to give yourself 3, 4, 6 weeks of time before you start sort of really feeling a change there. Right. And if that going in, you're gonna maybe give yourself some grace there and be able to kind of get back on it and sort of stay there. So after that 3, 4, 5 week period, we're like, oh, now it becomes a whole lot easier. Now it becomes even natural. That's when the habit is setting.
Yeah. So as a reminder, January 3rd, 5:30 p.m. at the Dublin Library.
Free for all.
Free for everybody. So if you guys
it's not a free for all. It is free for all. If I don't know.
Depending on how the night goes.
Yeah.
But if you guys want to start this journey with us in the new year, come hang out with us, ask questions, watch us talk. We'll be putting up lots of content between the 4 of us. I'll be doing a daily mobility thing for some daily movement, but we hope you guys we'll talk to you guys after the holiday.
One more, we got one more next week.
Yep.
And then just to tie back into the 4 pillars of health, that'd be a great way to sort of get some ideas for what might be some goals that you hit, because I'm going to cover more than just diet and exercise, which are the 2 that everybody thinks about. There's a lot more that goes into leading a happy, healthy life, and this talk is going to kind of cover some of those and give you some ideas that you might be able to sort of shoot for 2023. So,
absolutely. All right, guys, have a happy holiday. Hopefully the weather's not too bad, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.